everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here bright and early for this important discussion this morning. My name is Jude Bornstein-Chau. I'm a Philadelphian, a primary care physician, and a big supporter of Children First and the work that they do, because it makes sure that we're having the most important discussions that we need to have, the discussions that are focused on our children. For years, I worked at Oak Street Health, doing primary care for families up in North Philadelphia. And I can tell you firsthand that the hardships that our children face, the safety net systems are more than frayed. They're so woefully underfunded that they're tearing apart. So while our folks in Washington are talking about cuts to Medicaid, what I can tell you is that my firsthand experience as a physician in Philadelphia is that we are so far from what's needed that any discussion of cuts to Medicaid is nothing short of criminal. Children First understands that learning does not begin in the classroom. The reason why they're so impactful and why I love them is that they go beyond learning to acting in the civic space. They're making sure that our kids have what is needed. The report we're going to talk about today is chock full of recommendations, so without further ado, it's my pleasure to turn over the discussion to the man recently designated Superintendent of the Year, Dr. Tony Watlington.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. I want to say a very special thank you to Donna Cooper, who needs no introduction, and to Children's First. I recall just a few days into the job in the summer of 2022, and the Children's First biannual report had just come out, and gave us a lot of insight and data to chew on. As I think about the current report, I want to note that these data are really important, number one. Number two, it's not just the school district's responsibility or Children's First responsibility to attend to these data and figure out what do we need to do to support the social, emotional, and mental health of our young people, and to make sure they have access to opportunity. It is all of our responsibility in Philadelphia, here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and in the United States of America, and our officials in Washington, D.C. It is all of our responsibility. It reminds me, Ms. Cooper, that whenever Lonnie Grenier was recommended to be the Assistant Attorney General by President Bill Clinton, and she stood in front of the U.S. Senate at the confirmation hearing, and she said, talent is equally distributed in the population, but access and opportunity are not. And so when I think about the context of this report, I just want to note that it's deeply concerning. The number of our families that are struggling financially, number one. Number two, it's concerning to us in the school district that 47% of the kids in our city are growing up in financially stressed conditions, not only struggling to make ends meet, but some significant financial stresses. And one of the things that report, Donna Cooper, that particularly caught my attention, and folks like Estelle, Richman, and others who have a long history in this city, probably 30 times longer than my 3-year tenure so far, is that 48% of Philadelphia students feel sad, depressed, or anxious all the time, not some of the time. And so when we think about our focus in the school district is to be the fastest improving big city, large school district in the country. We're making significant progress. It just reminds me that as we run hard to improve performance, as measured by reading and math scores and graduation rates and dropout rates, that we not lose sight of the fact that we've got to do more, invest more resources, time, and significant partnerships that work to address the mental and social and emotional health and well-being. Because first, we want our children and their families to be well. And then we want them to get the best education they can get so that they can participate in the world's largest economy, regardless of what zip code they live in. So with that said, I want to say thank you so much, Children's First, for this report. We're going to get further into it. We're looking forward to being your partners here in the school district. And I do apologize for having to slip out just a few minutes early. we're recognizing our Teacher of the Month at Harding Middle School this morning, and I guess it's a big surprise. Don't tell everybody until Bob Kelly makes this big announcement. But I apologize for leaving, but I could not let this happen without getting here to say good morning to you and to say, Donna Cooper, thank you so very much, and we're going to be great partners, continued partners. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you. All right, nobody tweet out about Harding, okay? What I'm going to do right now is try and share with you the highlights of the data from this report that we put out. So Children First, for the last 10 years, every 2 years has been looking at the status of children. And since we started doing this 10 years ago, we thought this would be a good year to do a 10-year look back. Have things gotten better? What's gotten better? What's not moved? What's gotten worse? And we were pretty shocked by what we found. And to prepare this report, we spent a lot of time not just looking at data, but talking to decision makers, talking to policymakers, talking to parents, talking to kids, and talking to people who serve children directly. So the inputs into this report were really intended to make sure we get the story right. But part of the reason to be here today is to build this story with you and to also collectively work to change this. So I'm going to walk through this real fast. Everything I'm going to tell you is in the report that you have, so hopefully you don't feverishly think you need to take notes. And we'll also send out this PowerPoint. But I'm going to go through it quickly, and then what we're going to do is have some conversations with folks on the ground so that you can hear what some of this data actually means in action, so that it has much more meaning and it gives you the stories that we hope you will take with you when you leave and motivate you to take action with us in the year ahead. So the first thing, and the superintendent referred to this, what we did is we looked at what is the economic status of families. And one of the things that we know is that the census data kind of understates the challenges associated with income. It doesn't really capture how much it costs to raise children. And so we relied on a data analysis called ALICE, Asset Limited Income Households. And it's a data analysis that's put together by the United Way nationally. And what they found is that based on that data, 47% of families in Philadelphia are not earning enough to raise their children. And this is before anybody pays a dime of childcare. So if we add childcare to this mix, we're going to be closer to 60%. So people are making decisions like, do I pay my rent or do I get my kids asthma inhaler? What do I do? These are real tough decisions that people are making. Jude, you probably saw this day one in your shop. Interestingly, in Philly, the amount of money that Alice says we need to earn for a family with 2 children and 2 parents is $74,000. And that sounds like a lot of money, but that is really a $37,000 a year job for each parent, or about 17 bucks an hour. So this is not a wealthy family, but this is how much it takes for families to make ends meet, and again, before childcare. So how many kids are in those families? 152,000. So if you've been to Wells Fargo, and you've been to Citizens Bank, and you combine all the seats there, that's how many kids who are being raised by parents who so wish they could do everything they need, like do a great birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, but instead they have to make other decisions. It's a lot of children that we all have on our watch. Now this map, when we've done this report, we've done it in each of the counties, tends to show much more concentration in certain communities than others. But in Philadelphia, by and large, these children are everywhere. And it's really hard to see this map here, a little bit easier in your book. But the darker the area is, like the 80 to 100%, and again, the lighting is bad, we can see, and we live here. We know where these families live. We know where they're congregated, and it speaks to where do we make sure that we concentrate resources to accelerate their progress. One of the things that really struck us is we looked at family income, and we wondered, look, people's wages are going up. Yes, $7.25 is the minimum wage, but a lot of people are earning 10, 11 bucks an hour, maybe even 15. And so once we adjusted for inflation, we found that the situation is kind of bad. Like the bottom 20% of people in Philadelphia are earning less than $7,000 after you adjust it, or $7,200 once you adjust for inflation. Now, you can know that nobody can live on that's just not a viable experience. The next 20%, so now we're at 40% of Philadelphians. They're living on $25,000 a year, and their income has risen a little bit, $3,000 in effective spending power in 10 years. In effective spending power in 10 years. You can look up at the green line, that's the upper income, that's the top 20%, and their income's gone up about $22,000 in the last 10 years in terms of effective income. And this space between the green line and the yellow line is really something that challenges us to think about how do we make sure that families at the bottom, hardworking families, are getting some of the return of their effort, just as we're making that return possible through the tax code for people at the top. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we want to talk a little bit about, I mentioned childcare twice. 6 out of 10 families in Philadelphia who are eligible for childcare subsidy can't get in childcare subsidy programs because we have 2 challenges. One, there's not enough money to pay for childcare subsidy. And the second, we don't have enough workers in that system. Because to work in the childcare sector, you're going to earn 12, maybe you'd be lucky if you're 12 or 13 bucks an hour. Some childcare centers are now paying 15. But 15 bucks an hour is $30,000 a year. 40% of the people working in the childcare sector are on medical assistance and SNAP. And so they can go work at Costco, they can go work at Amazon and get more. And so kids are being shut out of childcare because of the structural problems in the system and the shortage of subsidy. And that means their parents are finding informal relationships if they're working, which means their work is less, they're gonna have problems going to work all the time, or they're not working, or they're not taking promotions. We hear over and over again, families who are on childcare subsidy rejecting earning more income because they'll lose their subsidy and they'll lose their ability to be at that childcare center because they'll need to go somewhere else. So it's a real problem. Families paying out of pocket for childcare are paying a quarter of their income for childcare. A quarter. And I'm sure a lot of you in this room are in that situation where you know you're shelling out an extraordinary amount of money for childcare. It's untenable for the working poor families who are just above the income level for childcare subsidy. Families earning $36,000, $40,000 bucks a year, and they're spending a quarter of that money on childcare. So one of the things that happens when we don't invest sufficiently in childcare is that we don't create a ladder an economic ladder that moves people up. So we're trying to look at what is the economic ladder that is able to move people up in Philly. And one of the things that is startling, but this has been true since the 1980s, we find it consistently, that some post-secondary education, not even a 2-year degree, not even a 4-year college, some post-secondary training, exposure, moves people up the economic ladder. So what you see here is that the green line shows that if you have some post-secondary training, of all the people with post-secondary training, only 18% are in poverty. Whereas without any post-secondary training, 23% will be in poverty. And without a high school degree, 35% will be in poverty. Now, of course, only 8% of people with a college degree are in poverty. But this is why the efforts to improve access to community college, post-secondary training, VOTEC training in high school, these are critical because we need kids to leave this school district, take some post-secondary training, and we will decrease the number of families in poverty significantly. And so, of course, college access is important, but we have incremental changes we can make that radically change the conditions for the next generation. Here's the sticker for shock. Only 6% of kids in our school district are in VOTEC training in high school, career VOTEC. And let me tell you, the suburbs aren't much better. They're at 7%, 8%. Pennsylvania is behind the 8 ball. Every state around us has double-digit kids in VOTEC in high school. Double-digit. Delaware has 90% of their kids graduating with an associate's degree, an occupational certificate, or completed an apprenticeship. So their poverty rates are going to be lower than ours in the years ahead because they're changing their policies based on the data. We know that this school district suffered extraordinary cuts in 2011 and didn't rebound from those cuts until 2019. And thankfully, the governor, both Governor Wolf our kids are suffering the shortage of resources with, these numbers are not surprising to anybody here. 65% of our kids are struggling passing the English assessments. 3 out of 5 of the kids are struggling passing the math assessments. This is changing. As the superintendent said, we are the fastest improving school district in the country on the national assessments. But look, we got a long way to go. This is not an acceptable situation. And as more resources come in from the state, we've got to drive those resources into the classrooms. We have to reduce our class sizes in our elementary schools so kids get the fundamental support they need to build on the foundations of academics. This district is $1.25 billion underfunded. That is not Donna Cooper's analysis. That is the analysis that's in state law now, where they calculate the shortage of funding. And so we're very grateful to have Morgan Cephas here today because she is a fierce champion of fighting for these resources. We're very excited to have Councilwoman Landau come in today because City Council stepped to the plate last year at the mayor's request. We know this district needs more resources. We've got to close this gap. We've got to do it a lot faster than people in Harrisburg are thinking it can be done. One of the things that's draining resources from the school district is how much we're paying out to failing cyber schools. I hope you all saw that the Attorney General put out a report last weekend showing that cyber schools are both failing our students and sitting on more than $600 million of taxpayer dollars of just 5 of the 14 schools. Will be at about $1 billion that they're sitting on now. They're not spending, it's all their surplus. And the Philadelphia School District has had to shell out $214 million more to these failing schools. So families are choosing cyber schools for a variety of reasons, but the state is not doing its job making sure that those cyber schools are delivering a quality education and spending the money they are paid by school districts to educate children. This is a scandal, and when you think that a Republican Attorney General put out a report about cyber schools, you know that there is a shift in thinking about the corruption in this sector. So, one of the things we thought we'd show you is how far behind Philadelphia is compared to other school districts in the region in terms of what they're owed by the state of Pennsylvania. So you can see we're owed $6,326 per kid by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it may not surprise you that Chester Upland is owed a little bit more. We know the history of letting down the kids in the Chester Upland School District very much here. But Philadelphia and Chester Upland, and then you add Norristown to that, these are the places where there's the biggest debt owed, and these are the places where we need to advocate to close this gap. But we have a lot of company. There's a lot of people owed money by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we work actively in these communities to make sure their voices are heard, just like people in Philadelphia, on the resources they need. While every school district in the state I showed you, these school districts are owed money by the state, they also are getting increasingly diverse. This is the Philadelphia School District's change in student demographics in the last 10 years. And one of the things you can see is that we have about 8,000 more kids whose first language is Spanish than we had 10 years ago. And they're coming from lots of different cultures, but they're bringing lots of diversity and tremendous cultural capacity, but they also bring a language challenge for teachers. So we are increasingly diverse in our district, and we are struggling, like all districts, to figure out how to meet the needs of those students. They offer us a great learning opportunity, but they also offer us a great learning burden in terms of meeting their needs. The other thing we wanted to point out here, and this is another key issue about education, is that Philadelphia is the training ground for pretty much every suburban school district. You come to Philly, you start here, you learn everything you need to know, but you're only paying $45,000 when you start. So if you go out to any suburban district, you will earn more. Well, not any. A few of the low-level school districts pay like we do. But because of the state spending gap, if you are an extremely talented teacher and you have the opportunity to be hired in Lower Merion, what are you going to do? We expect people to stay here out of duty and mission. And thankfully, I'm looking at Jayme, thankfully people do stay here. But look, that's just no way to run a ship, right? We need to up what we're paying our teachers and be competitive. At the same time, Dr. Watlington talked about what's happening in terms of the health of our kids. After COVID, there were new rules in Medicaid, and thousands of children have been cut off from Medicaid as a result. So we have fewer kids in Medicaid now than we did during COVID, but even than we did in 2017 before COVID. And so these children are out there without health insurance. Thank God there's school nurses in the Philadelphia School District. Ask them if they're insured, and those families call us, and they call FAN, and we help them get insured. But, you know, some parents think I was cut off, and I can't get back on. So the big word that we need to spread is that the state needs to do a better job re-enrolling these children, because these they got a notice that they had to re-enroll, but people understood it as being cut off. And so this is a big challenge, and it plays out in what the district can do for its health services and its mental health services, because if kids aren't on Medicaid, we can't bill and support these kids. At the same time, the appointment of RFK Jr. presents an entirely new challenge for the Philadelphia School District. So every kid has to start school with a full battery of vaccinations. Fourfold increase in Philadelphia of kids starting school where their parents have opted out of mandatory vaccines. This is the story across the region. We have more and more parents who are buying the myth that vaccines are somehow going to cause permanent damage to their children. They then erode our herd immunity, and as a result, kids who are vaccinated are getting sick from the disease that they thought they were being vaccinated for. For instance, whooping cough. Pennsylvania now leads the country in whooping cough, a disease nearly eliminated. But when we get so many families choosing not to be vaccinated, even vaccinated kids get whooping cough. It's not as bad, but they get it. And this is just, it's a horrible, horrible thing to watch, and it's a horrible thing for us to be happening. You know, we're the lead people. We talk about lead everywhere we go. 56% of our kids are not being tested for lead. Now, Philadelphia leads the country in having the best lead ordinance in the country, making sure that every apartment is lead safe in order to have its rental license. Thank you to everybody who supported that. But we still need to test the kids, because it's going to take a long time to make sure we get lead out of the homes. And so this is a place where we work with health practices, we work with the state, but we encourage people to think about the fact that when kids are coming to school and they're having mental health struggles, it may in fact be lead poisoning that is at the root of their challenge, and so we've got to nip this in the bud. As the superintendent said, nearly half of our kids, when they self-report, say that they are sad, depressed, or anxious. And you know, it may be that the kids aren't telling the truth on this, but it's the same survey they've been taking forever. So if they were like overstating one year, they're overstating this year. You know what I mean? The data trend is really showing this is going up. And if you're a teacher in front of a classroom and you're trying to teach somebody who's feeling really blue or anxious, and then something happens and a student hits them the wrong way, and you know what we all do when we're cranky, okay, that's what's happening in classrooms, and it's a really hard place to teach, because we have far too many kids that are carrying way too much baggage from the trauma that they face and from the situations that they're living in. So that's about nearly 68,000 kids needing mental health services in the city. 68,000. And we have one mental health professional for every 290 people, right? So we need to change this. We dramatically need to change this. So we have recommendations in here, and we're leading a new campaign called Strong Minds, Bright Futures that will rapidly create a mental health system that solves for that, and we encourage you to join that effort. So the good thing is that violent crime caused by kids has dropped by 51%. And we should note that the violent crime in Philadelphia always has been committed by adults. Our kids are not the reason we have high violent crime. They've typically been around 28% of all violent crimes, even in the height of when we have highest years of gun violence. But fortunately, their engagement in violent crime is dropping. But we still have too many kids dying of gun violence. So this is all gun violence, wounds and fatalities. And you can see that the red is the fatalities, the blue is wounds, and that's all people. And this is from 2015 to now. But more than 1,000 of those deaths and injuries are associated with children under 18. So we obviously have much more to do to save our kids, and tackling gun violence is a critical piece of this. The good thing is that our kids are showing a decline in risky behavior. In the counties, actually, I have to tell you, this is dropping more rapidly than in Philadelphia. So they're smoking less, they're drinking less, they're using marijuana less, they're using vaping less. But at the same time, they're feeling anxious and depressed. And so what researchers are doing is kind of connecting the dots and saying, this might be a result of the fact that kids are spending more time on social media than they are with each other. And as a result, like lots of bad stuff, we know what doom scrolling's like, right? We're doing it every day since Donald Trump's been elected. They have their own doom scroll ranges. They're probably not doing Trump. But nevertheless, it's not good for their mental health. So they are exhibiting less risky behavior, but their mental capacity is eroding. Philadelphia's foster care system, I want to thank Kim Ali and Vanessa Garrett-Hartley for being here, doing a great job taking fewer children out of their homes. We're really glad. It's a practice long overdue to be changed. So we're making great progress there. Thank you for making that change. And the city is doing more to keep families in their homes and support those families to be successful parents. And we have more data in the report about juvenile justice, about physical health, other physical health things. So this was just the highlights. We don't need to set the stage, but we wanted to also make sure that we made the connections with what's happening in Washington. So whether it's cutting the Department of Education, whether it's beginning to say that we need to cut Medicaid, whether it's cutting SNAP, all of that will make the lives of children worse. So we wanted to make sure that you knew that this is the congressional switchboard. You should take this picture, call it every morning until they stop attacking the programs that harm our children. That's critical. We know that the state legislature will never succeed in doing the things that Donald Trump is doing. They will fight those things. But we need to make sure that our senators and our members of Congress know how important it is that we sustain the investment in kids. And finally, I want to make sure you know that we have postcards out on the table, because one of the interesting things in the report, and this will be the last, is that Philadelphia, compared to all other counties, has dramatically increased the share of children in high-quality pre-K. Thanks to everybody in this room, more kids in Philly are in high-quality pre-K, and more programs are high-quality pre-K. It didn't happen by accident. The city's Office of Early Childhood, which is under Vanessa, run by Sean Perkins, has been extraordinary. And so has the soda tax. And there is a measure to say we need to think about the soda tax again. And we are saying that is a conversation that is done. We are done. So we have postcards outside that we hope you will sign and leave with us, and we will deliver them to City Council. We're going to take a lot more political action on the federal cuts, advocating at the state level and advocating locally. But what we want to do right now is ask our first panel to come up with Estelle Richman, the great Estelle Richman. So Estelle Richman, in case anybody doesn't know, former managing director of the City of Philadelphia, former health commissioner of the City of Philadelphia, former secretary of welfare in Pennsylvania, former chief operating officer of HUD, and most recently the head of the Citizen Committee to End Gun Violence. And the most important thing, a member of the Children First Board, is going to facilitate a conversation today with a few other folks on our panel. I want to ask Keisha, Hudson, Regina Brown, and Dr. Jayme Banks to come on up here. Thank you very much for being here. They're going to introduce themselves. But we're going to move right now so you can hear what this looks like on the ground and what's happening. And again, these are the stories we want to take out. While we bring them up, may I ask Parker Thomas from Children First staff to stand up? Parker's right here. Parker did the data collection in his report. And Children First team members, you could all stand up. All the team members at Children First, all of you stand up. These folks wrote this report. It's been a labor of love since July. We've been working on this. So thank you very much to the team, and Estelle, the show is yours.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's great to be back in this room, actually. I think the last time I was in this room, I was saying goodbye as head of the SRC and welcome the new school board. So it carries a lot of memories, but it's nice to be back for this event. As Donna mentioned, I'm a member of the board of Children's First. I noticed Donna didn't put talking points in for me because she knows what I do is talk. But at the same time, I think when Donna and I came back from our stints in DC within the Obama administration, we both said, I said, it's time for me to retire, and Donna says it's time to get a job. And so she did. And has been leading for 11 years now, 11, 12, somewhere in there, Children First. So it's been really an honor, not just to be part of this, but also to be on the board and to see how much it's grown. Children are my passion. My underlying degree is as a child psychologist, and I worked for many years with children in Cleveland before moving to Philadelphia to work with children and families. And there's many things I've learned. First, you never utter the word children if you don't have it with families or with people that children are living with. Children don't grow up by themselves. They grow up with, hopefully, an identified adult that they can identify with. And secondly, is every child needs opportunity and needs a stable place to call home. It's not okay to be homeless. And the only way, and the third piece I put in it, schools, homes, and food. Those are the basics we need before we start talking about anything else in a child's life. If we can do that, we can begin to figure out ways to support them. But if we don't have the basics, we don't have a good education, we don't have them in a stable environment, and we don't have them with adequate food, we're going to miss almost everything else. And sometimes we get those all confused. We aren't quite sure which come first. There's three that come first. There's no biggest. The biggest one of that has to always be family. But let us get started, because I think where we're all interested in mostly what you have to say and your perspective. And your perspective on our report and where we're going from here. I have three people with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Keisha Hudson, who's with the Defenders Association of Philadelphia. Regina Brown, I would have to say Regina's the most important because she's living this every day. And Dr. Jayme Banks. So let me start with each of you introducing yourself. And we'll start with Keisha. Keisha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning everyone. Keisha Hudson, Chief Defender of the Defender Association of Philadelphia. We are the largest public defender organization in Pennsylvania, the fourth largest in the country. Last year we represented about 75% of children and adults who come into the juvenile justice, dependency, and adult system. Specifically referencing children, we represented just shy of around 4,000 children last year in both our dependency and our delinquency systems.
Hi, I'm Regina Brown. I am an advocate for Children's First. I am a mother of 14 children.
Thank you. Dr. Banks.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Jayme Banks. I'm Chief of Student Support Services here at the School.
Thank you. First question to you, Keisha. In recent years, Philadelphia has begun to implement diversion strategies to keep kids out of the juvenile justice system. And according to the Juvenile Court Judges Commission data, we're diverting about 75% of our new juvenile charges now, making Philadelphia a leader in this area in the Commonwealth. What are some of the ways the city could build on the success of this approach and really still keep more kids out of the system? And while we're doing a good job, I'm sure you would agree too, we could do better and we could keep more children here and out of the system.
Absolutely, and we are seeing better outcomes for our youth who are being diverted. We prefer our youth not coming to the system at all. One focal point that we are working on currently is what we call our route to prison pipeline, where we have 1 in 4 of our youth who come into the dependency system. We are seeing them go into the delinquency system, and 1 in 5 of the adults that we represent have the dependency system involvement. So we're really focusing on that population, particularly the 6 to 14-year-old population. We're seeing that with their involvement in the dependency system 2 to 3 or 4 years, that's a funnel into our delinquency system, and I think that that's a population that we want to focus on and to work with Commissioner Ali to continue the great work that she has done in supporting our dependency population. I think the diversion programs are working. I think what we need to also increase our programs in our detention facilities. We'd like to use alternatives to detention. There are alternatives there that we'd like to see the city, the courts, and probation utilize to keep our children closer to home, to decrease the placement of children far away from home, as far as Texas, where we have children in placements that are far outside of Philadelphia and around the country. And also do more re-entry planning before our children come out of the detention center and placement. Currently, the Defender Association does not have the capacity to do that re-entry planning, and it's something that we are looking for supports so that we can work with youth both in the detention, but when they're coming out of placement, to ensure, in particular, that they're connected to education services. We see a precipitous drop-off with our youth coming out of detention and placement, in getting them back into the school district, getting them back to where they should be, and looking to increase resources in our organization, but also work with our stakeholders and partners, and ensure that before our children come out of detention or placement, that they are ready to come back to their families and communities. They will never be whole. The research, this report shows that any system involvement sets our children up for a trajectory that is not good on all levels, right? The report is great in terms of education and health, and even economic outcomes. So, but I think we can continue to do the work that we can do to ensure our children don't come into the system, and when they do, that we do our best to divert as quickly and then help them re-enter successfully.
Thank you. We'll come back to how do we get your kids in the school district and that flow. But first, Regina, thank you so much for being here today. I understand that you have a son that is currently in the juvenile detention facility.
Yes.
What's it like for him there? Can you describe a little bit of how he sees it and how you see it?
He feels that he's not respected, he's not heard, it's not a safe place. It's not a safe place. He feels as though they're racist. He just expressed that it's a place where he don't want to be at, and he expressed that he wants to be home. I only get a 10-minute phone call a week from him. He's 2 hours and 40 minutes away. We had a virtual visit last Friday, but it's like in a controlled environment where the case manager is like right there. So if he is feeling uncomfortable, or if something is going on, he's not able to express how he feels. I just feel like if he does express how he feels, he would be reprimanded like the bad way, because it's supposed to be a treatment facility, which I don't fully understand. So an example, like if his teacher says, "Have a nice day," and he responds, "Have a nice day" as well, that's considered like as being disrespectful, and he's processed, his privileges are taken away from him. I just feel like if it's a treatment plan, I feel like he should have been educated on like whatever he got in trouble for as far as like gun safety. There should have been other opportunities for him, because it was his first time getting in trouble. It's hard. I don't have no access to him. If something happens to him, I can't get 2 hours and 40 minutes away to get to him. You know, it's been a big impact on my family. Like his siblings, we spent our first New Year's without him. His first Christmas, well, we spent his first birthday, May 20th, without him being there and not really knowing like what's going on. I kind of feel like they're trying to break his spirit in a sense. I don't want him to lose like sight of who he is. So when I write letters to him, I always start off like, "You're worthy, you're important, you're special, you're needed, you're wanted, you're loved." I want him to know that when he comes out, that he has the support and the love and the family that he can come home to. Because a lot of children don't have that there. So they're there longer because they have nothing to look forward to come out. I want him to understand that these are bad choices. He made bad choices, but he's not a bad person. That he can come back from it. But I need him to understand that there's rules in life that he must follow. And I need him to follow the rules. I need him to make it back home to me. Not just home to me, but I need him to make it back home to me alive. And that's one of my biggest fears, is him not making it home to me alive.
Do you get to visit him? Is there a way for you to travel that distance and see him on a regular basis?
The visits are bi-weekly, and they're only for an hour. He just went in there in January. So far I've only been able to do video visits, 2 video visits with them. But it's just get in there. The visits are only from like 3 to 4 or 2 to 3, and it's just an hour visit, which wouldn't really give me enough time to even like really see
Not if
what's
it takes
going
2.5
on.
hours to get there, 2.5 hours to get back.
Right.
It'd be very difficult.
So that's like a hardship. I can only bring up to 4 people when he has siblings, and they have to be approved.
Can you share, I would go into my feeling about this, but we need to hear more from you rather than the things the system needs to do right now. But can you share some specifics about the services you think would make a difference for him and things that could actually help him since he's come in contact with the juvenile justice system? In your view as a parent, what would have made a difference?
I feel like he has an IEP. He has a specific learning disability. He's diagnosed with ADHD. I've had multiple meetings with his school and with the special education at his school about getting him in a more emotional support setting. That was a struggle. I felt like they were just tired of him. They just wanted him out of the school because they didn't want to use the resources to get him the help that he needed. To keep him on the right track. Like, I tried in vain. I had multiple meetings, just advocating for him to get the services. I've educated my son about why medication can help him and things like that, which is, I was just asking the school to do, is to educate the children about why these things, that there's nothing wrong with you, that some people just need a little additional help as far as the IEP and things like that. Just mentor programs, just educating him about gun safety, just reinforcing what I'm teaching him at home and the schools about peer pressure, bullying, the danger of guns, what guns do to people, what drugs do to people, not just glorify it, what they see on social media. And I just feel like they need him, not just my child, but all the children. They need to be, it needs to be, constant reminders of the positive things that we want them to produce.
That is absolutely what we need to do. If we could just follow the basic advice you gave, we would be in a different place right now. Dr. Badie, you've heard both of our speakers and the kinds of things we need to do for our youth that are in our juvenile justice system. And the superintendent made references to the mental health needs of our students. And that services are often in place in our district. Our report also calls out some fairly impressive services in regard to what the district is doing. Can you briefly describe to us what you're seeing as the mental health needs of the students? And can you tell us what mental health services are available for students and how those services are delivered?
Sure. Again, thank you for having me for this important conversation today. So even prior to COVID, right, we were seeing an uptick in need. Our students need, in terms of mental health support, we're starting younger and younger. So that's what we were already kind of preparing. Then COVID hits, right? And so we had to take what we already knew was brewing, but also try to figure out how to support kids in this new way. And as we were on the other side of it, we are really just trying to move even more upstream. What do I mean by that? That means growth continuum, right? So we have services, and I'll speak about our services in a second, at one end, and that's our individualized services with providers that we could not do this work without. But we also had to think more upstream, meaning like, what are we just teaching our kids about feelings and communication of those feelings and the importance of relationships and finding that trusted adult so that you can process those things with before it becomes bigger and meatier and they need individualized treatment, right? If we start upstream and pushing those supports sooner, it's a benefit for all. And so that's what we started doing, right? So we introduced kind of community meetings and other supports and resources that our schools can kind of combine with, a math lesson is a math lesson. There's also inside that math lesson is about relationships, right? And also asking for help if you don't know and teaching those skills then so that then when you need them during a hard situation, you've already started to practice those skills. So we've been doing a lot of effort in that community building as well as increasing the vocabulary, expressing the needs and emotions in our schools. Then as students need more support, we have really strengthened our continuum at the other end with our partnership with the Department of Behavioral Health and Community Behavioral Health. I'm blanking on the names right now, excuse me. CBH and DBH. We started a new program now a couple years ago, Intensive Behavioral Health Services, IBHS. So previously we had behavioral health providers in some schools, and this allowed us to have a behavioral health provider in every single school, okay? This increases our ability to access and connect kids to services. In addition to that, in our partnership with CBH and DBH, we also have our STEP program, which is the behavioral health program, but the school district, on the school district side. And so with that, we've pushed in 2 mental health professionals, a case manager, and a family peer specialist in schools across the city to really help our students inside the building get what they need in connection. So again, multi-level supports. I think what we found is with our children and families that need support, there's not one solution for everyone. Everyone needs different things. So we need to diversify our continuum so that we can connect our students and families with the supports they need. And also, again, time is of essence. So we have to have these systems streamlined as well as helping our partners communicate with each other. So we've been doing a lot of building as it relates to our providers in our buildings. Are they meeting with the school team? How's the communication going back and forth, right? Maybe the child is doing better in school, but there's more things at home that the family needs help with. How are we communicating that and how are we helping? So really it's been, years of us really just trying to elongate that support, start earlier, but also when emergency services are needed, make sure they're in place and ease of access.
Thank you, because I think starting early is something that we've all learned much over the years. As Donna sort of described, I've been at lots of different levels of care, from very local to very high in the federal government. And probably one of the most consistent issues I've heard is how difficult it is to get in and out of the system. It's hard to get in. In other words, I have heard many parents say, I tried to get my son or daughter help, and no one was there, or I had to be, he was this much problematic, or he had to be that much problematic, or he had to trigger a certain level of diagnosis before he could really get help. But the parents knew there was something that was wrong. And across the system sometimes seems so bureaucratic that the parents can't be heard, much less the child being heard. How do you see a future where we can actually lower the bureaucratic temperature in our system, listen more to families, listen to her son when he wants to get better but no one's talking?
I'll start to pass down. When I think about the work that Children's First is doing around changing some of the Medicaid regulations as it relates to diagnostic codes and what's needed in order to access service, right? I'm also thinking about Medicaid dollars and what dollars the school district can access and which ones we can't, right? The more more we have legislative support in opening that window, the earlier we can support, and you do not need a, official diagnostic code to get help. That's one of the barriers. The other barrier, I would say, is just around funding and diversification of funding. And so I think continue to think about, of course, Medicaid is a line, but we have to think about many different funding lanes so that we can do more preventative work when we cannot access those Medicaid dollars. So that's the first part of my answer, if I could talk forever about this.
I think it's really important to realize that people need advocates, and that our families, our youth, and our families they're not equipped to be able to advocate in a way through that bureaucracy, to understand the different systems and how to access the different systems. And what we see is when you have an advocate with you, you are able to help that family navigate those complex systems. Our children, our families are overwhelmed, and there are a lot of issues that are going on in their communities, particularly the youth that we represent at the Defender Association of Philadelphia live in communities that over decades, right, have been disinvested and are places of poverty and high need, and absence of supports in the community, and not enough supports in the school district. At the Defenders, we tell people we can see a mile away how our children and our adults come to us. I can look at the prenatal records sometimes and look at their time in hospitals and the numerous times they may have lacked supports in school, and I can tell you that this is how our kids come to us. So I think investments in family, investments in community, but also give people advocates, whether it's to access housing, whether it's an education board, to ensure that they're getting the proper supports. I'm not in the school district of Philadelphia. I live in Montgomery County, but it took me 4 months of my own advocacy to get my daughter occupational and physical therapy. And I'm an attorney, and it took that long for me to negotiate and work with my school district to get my daughter the supports that she needs. So there are complex issues. Families need help. Families need advocates to work for them and with them to get access to services.
Regina, I want you to have the last word. You are a parent advocate. You understand this from all sides. So in my opinion, you're the expert. What is your advice?
My advice is to have an advocate, have a seat, have a support person, seek legal counsel, education lawyer. Because again, they say that our children need mental health help, but it's not enough people to provide those services. And I just feel like they want to implement like counselors and therapy only when they see an issue arises. Why not before? Why not make it available to all the families, not just, I see this child is experiencing anxiety, let's get them help. I mean, even though that COVID affected a lot of things and social and emotional and social media and things like that, why not just have that plan in place? Why not deal with the emotional side of things to help them regulate their emotions, to help them? Why not just we put them right back in the flow of things when mentally they're going through things that we have no idea that they're going through. So if they have our children for 8 hours a day, I feel like they have a responsibility to continue to teach them what we're instilling them at home and support them emotionally. Like, even though they're not showing these things, these signs of distress, but they're feeling these things, So just give them the help. It shouldn't be a battle. Like, I shouldn't have to fight for a 504 plan. You tell me that my child is experiencing anxiety about the things that they experience in the neighborhood and the violence and things like that. But I come to you as a parent and I say, okay, you're not a professional, but you diagnosed them with anxiety, so let's get them a 504 plan. And then they say to me, let's discuss it. Let's discuss it. He needs a diagnosis. No, we don't. Now I gotta get an educational lawyer. But if I wasn't educated on how to help my child, I would've just accepted what they threw at me, So now it's like, okay, now we got the ball rolling, but now you're still trying to drag your feet. Now you're trying to meet with me outside of school, trying to cover up a mess that you done made. And no, I'm keeping my foot on your neck because you owe him. Now he's entitled to these services. Now, you're going to give him the help that he needs before he goes out in the streets and commit a crime or do anything. Let's help him emotionally first. And then we can help him further along to get him in the right mind space. But everything shouldn't have to be a fight. I don't wake up every day to fight, but I do it. I advocate for them because I love my children, and my job is to teach and to help them.
I think we now have a 504 plan for our system. We just have to listen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And again, we want you to walk away with the stories that show that the data has like very deep meaning for people. We're going to hear a couple more stories. We're going to ask State Representative Morgan Cephas to come up, and I have to tell you, you may not know this. Morgan is by far the most effective state legislator. She gets bills on criminal justice reform with Republican champions that everybody like, how'd you do that? You know, so like she's spectacular, and thank you for being there. And Morgan started out her world in this world, so this is really great. Donna Fields is coming up, Tiffany Chavous coming up, and Imani Davis is coming up. So come on and have a seat.
Thank you so much. When you had me going after Estelle Richman, you didn't tell me that. But I will absolutely do my best. So how are we doing this morning? It's still morning, right? First and foremost, as Donna Cooper stated, I am State Representative Morgan Cephas. I represent the 192nd Legislative District out in West Philadelphia. And I've had the distinct pleasure of representing that district for about 9 years now. This is about my 5th term, the age and dog years up there, as you can imagine. It is also a distinct pleasure to also be the chair of the Philadelphia delegation. Now what that means is it's more than just herding cats, but it's really setting the agenda for Harrisburg when it comes to the issues that we prioritize here in the city of Philadelphia. So as you can imagine, our top 3 issues this legislative cycle, of course, being education. Second being, our public safety, but also ensuring that we are driving economic development dollars here in the city of Philadelphia. So if you took SEPTA, that is also one of our top priorities this legislative season. But I first and foremost just want to thank Donna. She's been a fearless champion up in Harrisburg, since the Riddell days. She is still blowing down doors up there as we speak. I know we will be with her over the next couple of weeks as we go through appropriation season, with her reminding us of what is at stake. So I do want to thank her, and I also want to thank the team at Children First. I absolutely know that she could not do that work alone, so thank you for just your advocacy, your work on the report. I'm a firm believer that if it's not measured, it's not managed. And in this time, we have to ensure that we're not just, celebrating the successes that we've had, because we've had those recently, especially with the Commonwealth Court decision and the investments that we've made. But we also have to ensure that we're measuring our impact, because those other people on the side of the aisle love to make comments about does investments actually make a difference? And we're like, well, just kind of wait and see. Give us a chance. So I do want to thank the team for doing it. I also want to thank Dr. Watlington, but most importantly, I want to thank the stakeholders in the room. Again, we are significantly under attack in this moment. Public education is under attack when we look at what is happening on the federal level. And not only are we going to have to fight back and push back, but we're also going to have to continue building on our successes and making investments in a way that we won't, force our families to go back. So that, as we are both in, Siri and us are in budget season, so the Department of Education was up before appropriations just yesterday, where we have roughly around 5 or 6 Philadelphia delegation members that are on the appropriations committee. We also have the chairman, Jordan Harris, which is extremely exciting. So we have advocates up there that know firsthand what education means here in the city of Philadelphia. And as a politician, I'm not going to keep talking, and I'm going to get to, the important conversation that we're having here today, because again, it's about, advocates that are on the ground, that are not just in our classrooms working with our families, but those that are seeing, investments and the lack of investments in real time and what that means to make progress in the city of Philadelphia. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our lovely panel to begin introducing themselves. We'll touch on a couple of topics today. Early childhood education. We all know that the foundation of early childhood education, really will dictate the progress of not just our city, but the progress of our families. We'll also touch on K-12 and the progress that we made. You've seen Dr. Watlington talked about the student learning gains being the best, across the country, which is extremely significant. Again, it's not just Dr. Watlington, it's all of the stakeholders in the room on the panel that have helped to make that progress. And last but not least, another issue near to my heart. It was surprised to see it on the agenda, but the issue around maternal health and the role that plays in ensuring that our families have what they need in order to thrive. So again, I'm going to stop talking and ask our panel to introduce themselves. So we're going to first start with Tiffany, Chavous.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for having me. My name is Tiffany, Chavous. I am the CEO of Somerset Academy Early Learning Center, located at 7th and Girard. We have a robust early childhood center, also do after school, and also deal with gun violence. So we do a little bit of everything that you're talking about, from infants all the way to after school and our nonprofit.
Fantastic. Next we're going to go with Donna Fields.
Yes.
There you go. You all are in the order. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Donna J. Fields. I am first a mother of 3 beautiful daughters. They are now 25 next month, 20, and 18, a graduate of Carver Engineering and Science in June. So they have all graduated from magnet schools in the Philadelphia School District. I am next a parent advocate. I have graduated from the Family Empowerment Fellowship with Children First and the Parent and Kinship Action Lab, led by the amazing Inella Ray. I am a registered nurse with the School District of Philadelphia, and I have also worked in postpartum care and newborn health for the last 10 years. So it is an honor and a pleasure to be in this space with you all.
Fantastic.
Good morning. My name is Imani Davis. I am also a mother of 3, and I also have a child that's in Carver Engineering. Yes, that's my soon-to-be 16-year-old. I also have 2 daughters that are 6 and 2. I am a community specialist, a lived experience expert, and also an advocate with Children's First. I graduated from a cohort with the Parent and Kinship Action Lab, and I'm also a Black maternal and child health advocate.
Thank you. Thank you. So I also too went to public school my entire life, way back when. And one thing I definitely can say in this moment for our young people, particularly coming out of COVID, I don't know how it would have been. They are dealing with a lot of significant challenges in the city of Philadelphia, with some of the learning loss, still some of the challenges in their immediate community. I always like to say that our young people are dealing with 2 book bags. One book bag of their challenges that they experience at home and in their community, but also the book bag of their books in our school system. So let's level set to get a sense on what is happening within our school buildings. And we'll start with Donna. You work in the Philadelphia Public Schools every day. Help us understand what students at your school need every day. What is at stake for the students you work with, if their mental and medical needs are unmet? How does it impact their ability to thrive at school?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I've been thinking about this for some time, and we've also discussed this last night with my colleagues and also the Children First crew over there. In all honesty, honesty, students need their basic needs met before anything else. You cannot succeed, you cannot thrive if you're dealing with social injustice, inequality, behavioral, of course we've heard this before many times, and mental health conditions that are being unaddressed, and you place them in a classroom to succeed academically. This to me is common sense. I do feel like we need to integrate these services into the curriculum. I think that would be amazing for students to be able to come to school and address the specific needs that they are trying to manage on their own sometimes, because we have an LA program where we have students who are immigrants as well. And these students come to the US without parents, without guardianship. They are members of the ECHIA services who provide homeless services to these families, trying to provide shelter and resources. I can't imagine being in a classroom and having to complete assignments, and I don't have my family at home to support me in these efforts. I am dealing with so many different aspects of life and the world that cause fear, cause anger, and it's difficult to focus. That mindset that you need in order to graduate from high school has to have every aspect of your life involved in order for you to even reach beyond a high school diploma. So on a daily basis, I encounter students who aren't able to maintain a level of attention needed for 45-minute to 60-minute classroom time. They have to step out. They need those breaks. Their anxiety and the panic attacks are increasing. The HVAC system in the school causes certain rooms to be over 100 degrees. With 30 students in the class, that just causes an increase in the panic attacks. I have students that come in constantly with nosebleeds. Physical altercations are just the norm at this point.
No, that's helpful. I mean, particularly when we're, having budget conversations right now, and I know Governor Shapiro in the General Assembly made a significant down payment, I would like to say, after the Commonwealth Court decision of over $300 million last year. But this year, the governor's talking about doubling down, and two of those areas that you brought up was around mental health. I think it's roughly around $100 million that he wants to invest in mental health across the system. But then also, $125 million for school facilities. But to your point, when we're making those investments in silos, it doesn't have the impact that we would like to see in the more immediate. So can you talk a little bit about what does that look like when you integrate mental health into curriculum so it's not two standalones?
So when I encounter students in my office, we have young individuals who are involved in substance abuse. So we have particular programs. I've become a coordinator in the school. So I will bring in my CCP nursing students who are amazing, came in and did a presentation on vaping. If you have a history of alcohol and drug abuse in your family, and I feel like that would be vital for families and students to be engaged in services related to those needs. Once again, the students who are experiencing homelessness, maybe housing where there are multiple families living in that unit, couch surfing, making sure that those needs are met, and maybe introducing them to finance courses and building credit so they can hopefully be able to live independently one day. We have other students whose sexual health is being compromised. We have our LGBTQ community who experiences bullying on a daily basis. Making sure that the services that they request, or maybe the organizations that they can connect with, are available to them in school. So every family and every student has different needs that need to be met. But we need to do an assessment in order to make sure that we meet the needs of all of the families and the students. And not only should we have these services in school, I agree with Dr. Bates, yes. I agree with her when we need to extend these services into the community, into the families' homes, because what we teach in the school district might contradict what is being learned in the communities and in the houses that these students reside in. So they're getting misinformation from outside, and we need to make sure that we disseminate all of the educational materials that the families need and the services and the community that they live in. Because once they leave that building, they might just go astray.
And you're raising a critical point. I want to switch the conversation over to Tiffany. It's about the backbone supports that are needed for not just our young people, but also for our families to thrive. And I want to touch on with you, Tiffany, that you operate multiple types of programs at Somerset Academy, including childcare, pre-K counseling, PHL, pre-K. You're doing a lot. Early head start. But you're essentially laying the foundation for our young people, again, to thrive in the city of Philadelphia. But we know in order for our families to thrive, our students to thrive, and your operation to thrive, we need to ensure that there's uniformity across all the programs. And we know one of the issues is staffing shortages. I know our governor's budget scratches the surface, as Donna would always say, and we know we need more significant investment, but we know that the report that was produced, it states that close to 4,000 children were turned away from programs due to staff shortages. And again, it goes back to that it is not measured, it's not managed, and we're not able to tell these stories. So can you talk about how staffing shortages have impacted your programming?
Absolutely, and again, thank you for having me here. Right now, we have a classroom that we can't open because we don't have the teachers. And I think I heard someone before me say that the slideshow presentation indicated that the teachers aren't getting paid what they should. And it's hard for us to compete with the school districts and outside of the school district of Philadelphia when our pre-K teachers aren't getting paid what they're worth. And we understand when you hear about high school students and the mental health, it doesn't start just at kindergarten, everyone. It starts at infancy. It starts at preschool. What I'm hearing from friends in this industry is when fourth grade teachers, kindergarten teachers, they say that they can see the difference with how children come to school without preschool. If we can't start earlier, I mean, a lot of our children are going to slip through the cracks. We need to pay our teachers more. And that's the struggle I see at the ground level, the teacher shortage.
Now, how do you think public investments in pre-K can change the lives of children in your program?
Great question. I see it because I see it. I mean, it makes me smile because I see it changing every day when parents with children who do have IEPs, or we like to call them, have unique challenges because they're not disabilities. They just learn differently. But when we see those parents coming into Somerset and seeing, wow, my child can self-regulate. So when you're talking about that mental health and them being in a classroom now, in high school, some of that tutelage starts at an early age when they're able to, sit and do an unpreferred activity, when they're able to use language that they may not have had, and that starts at preschool. Again, kindergarten is wonderful, but we need it to start earlier. We need it to start earlier.
I know Donna loves to beat down the doors about universal pre-K. So could you, before I switch over to Imani, can you touch on just the importance of universal pre-K.
Absolutely. At Somerset, we were able to usher in so many more children with unique abilities, with free preschool, and we see the benefit. We have heard from parents who have come back to Somerset and said, thank you so much. My child is able to do well in parochial schools, public schools, private schools. We have been able to change the trajectory of children, starting with these funds from Philly Pre-K, Pre-K Talents, Early Head Start. They are needed, and more funds are required so that we can bring the suburbs that we talk about into the city. We have free chefs, a chef at our school. We have a behavioral specialist to help, like someone else said before us, to weed through all of that red tape. We have a music therapy program, and we were able to do it because of the funds that we are given through these programs. We need more.
No, I appreciate that. And I want to speak to Imani really quickly, because again, I thought this was a very interesting conversation to align with pre-K and K-12 education. That's the issue of the birth justice movement that's happening. And I know we have Maternity Care Coalition in the room, Sarah, so I know she's going to love some of these questions. But can you talk about, Imani, your work in the birth justice movement and the progress that you helped the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania make in that space?
Sure, definitely. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me here. Before I speak, I just want to first thank these ladies also because as a parent, I know that these things are necessary. Like you said, pre-K, universal pre-K, free pre-K, school nurses, all of these are additional supports that are necessary to help our children. So just thank you ladies for the work that you do. For myself, with my two last children, the ones that are 6 and 2, I became more aware of the dire statistics of the maternal mortality rates and morbidity rates after having my 6-year-old. And I'll just make the story brief. With my 15-year-old, when I had him, which I had like a 10-year gap, so I had private insurance, and I just feel like the treatment that I faced with having my daughter and having state insurance, it was just completely different. I noticed that I felt like I was treated differently, and after that, I just became aware of how other women were being treated, specifically Black women, unfortunately. And I said, well, wow, this is really unfortunate, but what can I do? So a friend of mine actually introduced me to the CAN, the Community Action Network, and I became affiliated with them, started attending different work groups, and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing work. One of the work groups I was able to be a part of started the Philly Jayme, which is now a guaranteed income.
Can we please clap for Philly Jayme? That was significant.
Yes, it's a guaranteed income pilot program. It's actually coming to being filled just this past week for 250 families. They're giving them $1,000 per month up to 1 year after birth, postpartum. Because statistically, people don't realize that a lot of the mortality can happen up to a year after birth. It's not just during childbirth. It's not just during those complications. It can happen due to morbidity and also just pre-existing conditions, whereas people fail to get treatment because you're so focused on the baby. You forget to care about yourself. So within this movement, I've also worked with the DOVA, that's Organized Voices for Actions, which has helped create Birth Bridge Philly, which I also work with. And that's basically about strengthening collaborations and connecting people with the right resources that they need, like Maternity Care Coalition, having access to just equitable health care, having access to programs like you mentioned, Early Head Start. I definitely have my 2-year-old enrolled in a Early Head Start program when they come out to the home. And just in my opinion, all of those things are so beneficial to child development.
I appreciate it, and thank you again for your work. I absolutely love the concept of the Philly Joint Bank. It's, you know, the first time in the city of Philadelphia that we've actually been talking about delivering the concept of a guaranteed income, and that is the perfect place to start. So just to continue, I know the Children's First report just released talked about children at an alarming rate in the city of Philadelphia without health insurance. Then, you know, we also have the absence of a guarantee to paid leave. The risk of lead poisoning for children in Philadelphia is still relatively high, and the challenges in the child care sector. Can you talk about your own experience and your experience working with women who have to cope with these types of challenges?
Yes, for sure. I can speak in my own experience first. I've actually had the experience when my 6-year-old was younger. Just going to a regular primary care appointment, I had her lead levels tested. And unfortunately, her lead levels were a little high. So they gave me, you know, just a couple of things I could do as far as changing diet. And I said, well, what can I really do, you know, to help this not happen again? And come to find out, just upon doing my own research, they actually had a grant available to help with getting the lead remediation. And I feel like things like that, people shouldn't have to find out on their own. You should be brought those resources or have those resources brought to your attention right after childbirth. It's like, hey, get your child tested for lead. Some people aren't even aware that you should get your child tested for lead. So things like that are absolutely necessary. Also, as far as the insurance system, people, I feel like, should definitely have support from a community health worker. Sometimes you're dealing with, like you said, immigrant families, people who are completely unaware of how to navigate the system. And just in my own opinion, I'm glad that I'm educated, but some people are not, and they don't know how to advocate for themselves. So all of those things are important, in addition to just having access to equitable care and equitable treatment. You shouldn't be treated differently just because you have a state insurance as opposed to private insurance. And supports like community health workers are definitely beneficial in helping people navigate the system, and also dealing with things like barriers of language, and again, just not being aware of the resources that are available in our city, because there are many, but come to find out on my own, it's just like, you just don't know, you're just not aware. So if you don't have that knowledge to go and look and find out, or, you know, have those preventive measures or those resources already offered to you, then you just won't know.
No, that's extremely helpful, particularly with the level of technology that we have. There should be an app for all of the things that you're talking about that you should be able to navigate. I'm going to just squeeze in one last question before we close out. So, as a legislator, I'm going to ask you all to be a legislator for the day. And tell me what I need to be going back this budget season to be advocating for some of the issues that you talked about. I know one is not a lot, so I'll give you 3, but if you keep the 3 quick, we'll be able to get that in. But what is it that you want as your Philadelphia delegation chair? You are the Philadelphia delegation chair for the day. I'm swearing you all in. What is it that you want to see and advocate for this budget season? I'll give you 3. Give me 3.
Off the top of my head, I want to definitely say implicit racial bias training in healthcare. Also, just access to equitable care. Doulas, I love the mommy bus. Yes, doulas need to be paid. And I've also recently had certification to become a doula, because I felt like there was a definite change in my care, learning how to advocate for myself and having someone advocate for me. So definitely having doulas get paid by Medicare and Medicaid, and just free pre-K. Free pre-K, because look, it's made a difference in my life and my children and their development, and everyone should have access to it.
This is tough. I was definitely not prepared to think about, so 2 policy, or 3 policy requests.
However many you got,
Okay.
no more than 3.
All right. I mean, when we walked into this building this morning with the nursing students that I'm here with, they were amazed. They were amazed with this building. So I know when I have these conversations with my colleagues, once again, the first thing they say when I mention certain standards that we should live by, they say it's never going to happen. And it's just this woeful acceptance that a lot of individuals with tenure and with I guess the fact that they're vested in the district at this point, and I respect that, but I feel like we should have new school facilities. The environmental factors that you have to live in or work in determine your outcome, and that has been researched. So definitely just making sure our environmental factors are stable and efficient and vibrant, that would be amazing. Ooh, a second policy would be to make sure all of those mental, behavioral, and social needs are not only integrated in the school district curriculum, but also having a space, an actual space for those services to hold within every school building. The STEP team in every school building, the case managers, the social workers, the facilitators, to make sure that these programs can run efficiently. A third, I'm a product of the school district. I don't think we should just pass with a 65 or a 60. I don't think that's acceptable. When I went to community college, because I struggled, because I didn't have my parents to support me, I was taking pre-college courses. So I'm paying for my education even after I graduated, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. So I think we need higher standards when it comes to our students, because if we want them not only to graduate, but to have an increase in income, to decrease poverty, they need to go to college and get a 4-year degree at least. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was like everyone, I wasn't prepared for this question. Even going last, I wasn't prepared. But I will start with universal pre-K. Universal pre-K should be at the top of every list, because again, it starts at infants. We also need to have higher wages for our preschool teachers. We need to match the kindergarten to 12 expectations for income. We talk about retention, we talk about starting young, but we can't do that if we're in that study, if we're paying our teachers $12. Like you said, they can go to Walmart, they can go to Burger King, but we want them to teach and care for our most vulnerable children, our infants, our toddlers, our preschoolers. But we want to pay them $10, but then we want the highest level of education. It's baffling, but we definitely need to pay them more. And then, so that we can have better mental health, we need to give more money for children who learn differently. It's not enough to just say, oh, we'll get them in kindergarten, and we'll help them when they get to kindergarten. But we've learned at Somerset that we can change the trajectory by kindergarten if we start at 0. We do not have to wait until kindergarten. We do not have to have them slip through the cracks and then be placed in a classroom or set by themselves or made to feel different because they learn differently. We need to start there at the infant and preschool age. And if we do that, I think it'll be a domino effect. We'll see less people in high school with mental health because they've learned how to deal with some of these challenges. They'll go into kindergarten with the services that they need, starting from infants. So those are my 3.
Y'all sound like legislators. Y'all are spot on. Well, no, I want to thank you again. Just thank you for what you do. Thank you for caring for our families, our young people, setting them on a trajectory of success in a very difficult time. I feel like, oftentimes we have thankless jobs, and we still have to produce in this moment, which I know can be extremely difficult.
Thank you.
So, again, thank you for what you do. I also want to give a shout out to Ray from Senator Vincent Hughes' office. He is our minority appropriations chair. We have two Philadelphians as chairs on appropriations, so we know the critical issues that are here in the city of Philadelphia. And if we didn't, Donna Cooper will definitely let us know over the next couple of weeks. So I want to thank him for coming, but thank you, Donna, for having us.
Thank you. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you so much. As Morgan had I heard a smattering of applause when Imani referenced doulas. Another piece of legislation that Morgan was the champion of was getting Medicaid to provide doulas as a standard benefit for families. So, this is an extraordinary state representative who's bringing her experience on the ground to really deliver, so thank you. So, all the panelists are still here, except for Keisha had to go to a meeting, but we have a few minutes. If anybody has a question for anybody that was on the panel or anything about the data, or you want to make a comment, we have a few minutes, we'd love to hear from you. And if not, we have more coffee and bagels out front. But really, anybody have anything they feel burning they want to bring up? Questions? Yes. Hi, Ashley. Hi.
I want to say that we offer a lot of programming and 504 plans to those who are diagnosed, but if they are,
Thank you so much.
if they already are a concern in our schools, why are we waiting for them to get diagnosed? When they diagnose it, it's going to follow them for the rest of their lives. It's going to be on their record. So if there's something that's occurring now, that diagnosis, and we can cure that with programming, why do they need to be diagnosed first? Why can't we just provide them the services that they need to thrive as young people, to then be thriving adults? We shouldn't wait to diagnose them because their current environment is not the safest or not the healthiest for them. When that can change, but we need to provide the services first.
So thank you. So Ashley is somebody who's been very active with us on mental health work and is currently actively involved with a project here called the Flourish Agenda, which is preparing kids to really learn how to be mental health leaders, really, and community health workers by talking about and learning about how trauma is affecting how they think. So on March 11th, is Kate Fox here? On March 11th, we're having a webinar. At what time? At noon. Because that policy of requiring the diagnosis is top of our agenda to get rid of. So if you want to be part of that and changing the Medicaid rules to get rid of diagnosis as a vehicle for getting kids access to care, May 11th at noon, you'll all get the email about it. Be there to be part of this work. Any other comments? All right, thank you so much for, oh yes, please, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I'm gonna be a legislator for a second too, and advocate for detention centers in the back there. And then also, how can we help students who have like language barriers in the pre-K setting? My roommate just got a job as a 5th grade teacher, and she's seeing a lot of difficulties right now with language. She doesn't speak Spanish, none of her other teachers speak Spanish. So how can we battle that?
Where is she teaching?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
It's with the school district.
Yeah, so actually I think you really hit the nail on the head about the challenges with kids whose languages aren't, their first language is English. I'm going to let Richman speak to this specifically, but this is a huge cultural shift that the district needs to make. If a school building, the principal wants to hire somebody to work with families who don't speak English, they have to use one of their 2 designated free hires, like non-teacher hires, to do that. So they might give up a music teacher. They might get, Lola's like, oh my God. Right? So we have not yet embraced the fact that this is a core faculty position that needs to be in buildings. Lee Quinn, do you want to add to that?
Thank you. I'm going to stop. So I have a challenge though. I have a comment and I have a challenge. my comments, thank you for the panelists who brought up the issue of immigrant children, new arriving children going to the school, and I'm one of those product of that. Not having your parents here, relying on the sponsor family and all that. So that's thank you. My challenge is what Donna, touching on what Donna said and what this young lady said, is that I challenge the legislator to think of a mandate where people have the resource, but the mandates also allow folks to provide services to new arriving immigrants and refugees. Beyond language access, I am so tired of hearing about just language access and translation services because it's more than that. So I don't know what that language looks like because I'm not in your chair, but sometimes you need a mandate in order for everybody to act, or else you are at the mercy of the provider. So that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much. Kind of like we have IDEA, everybody, if they have a disability, have to get IDEA services. We don't have anything that establishes a mandate to welcome and make sure every kid gets what they need in schools. So you can tell this is a room full of advocates. I am so grateful to Imani and Donna and Regina, who you guys are like next generation child advocacy leaders. Thank you so much. And to everybody being here, please make sure that we don't have any coffee or Danish or bagels left over. Thank you for coming. Look, we're going to be fighting the federal cuts. We're going to Harrisburg, make sure Morgan knows that everything people ask for today is important. And obviously, we'll be down at City Council saving the soda tax. Sign your postcards, leave them at the table. Thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye.